Jonathan.
Well, I haven't been able to check in yet, so maybe call on me.
I'm sorry. We have Philip and then Mary White. So 30-second check-in, Philip, and then Mary White.
Yes, I'm Philip Cole from the San Francisco Wolf Branch, and just got back from the in-person board meetings, and got to meet a lot of people from North Carolina and other places around the country. And we had 24 hours of meetings over a 2-day period. Thank you.
So George, you've started the recording now. I thought we had already started it before the check-ins, but at any rate, Mary White, where are you?
I'm here. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad to be with you. I'm with the Faith Health Caucus, and I'm from Durham, NC.
Yes, Mary White is in the Triangle Branch, and we're glad to have you. Well, the first item on the agenda is just to explain the relationship between the UN Decade Reparations Subcommittee, the Black Liberation Caucus, and the Southern Anti-Racism Network. We've had this discussion inside of the Black Liberation Caucus about the fact that the Southern Anti-Racism Network, which is committed to reparations for its entire existence, which is close to 25 years. And when SARN decided to commit to building WILF as an anti-racist organization last year, we began organizing branches in the South, and very importantly, the Black Liberation Caucus. The Black Liberation Caucus, in its basis of political agreement, agreed to support reparations. Now, this subcommittee has a shelf life. So on December 31st of 2024, this subcommittee goes out of business, but the fight for reparations does not end at that point. But this is the UN decade, and we have to decide within the advancing human rights structure if we want to have a reparations subcommittee or we want to simply leave the work to the Black Liberation Caucus. That's a decision that we can make in 30 months from now. So what this part of the agenda is about is answering any questions about the shelf life of this subcommittee, which is 30 months remaining. So George, this is the point where you do the screen share of that final page, which shows our strategy and goals of the Black Liberation Caucus, which that will help people understand what we hope to accomplish over the next 30 months. So for some reason, the little thing got grossly reduced. So I guess I'm still here. George, are you still there?
I am.
Yeah,
And we're sharing the screen, show the goals from July 2023 to December 2024.
And actually, I can actually read it on my laptop, but not on your phone, probably, Teresa.
Well, I'm actually on my laptop,
Oh,
but
great.
the laptop is acting funny, but I know what's in it. But George, if you could read the 3 goals from the BLC strategy chart.
Yes, ma'am. Reparation ordinances in 20 branches, the UN Decade Reparations. 300 new members nationwide. 20 branches participate in anti-racism transformation, ART. Those are our overall goals.
Why? Okay, good. Here's July 2022. I was wondering,
Well,
started in 20.
for the purpose of this meeting, and I keep having trouble with my laptop, so I'm back on my phone. But for the purpose of this meeting, we simply wanted to look at the final goals. When we have the Black Liberation Caucus meetings, we discuss the fact that we started the 3-year strategy in January of this year. So the first phase ends on June 30th of this year. We have surpassed our goals for the first phase. We're now going to be moving into the second phase. But for the purpose of this meeting, uh, and George, I lost you when you were reading the 3 goals, but passing the 20 ordinances in cities where we have branches. Now, the Membership Development Committee claims that we have 40 branches of will, but not all of them are functioning as branches. So what we have to do in this discussion today is identify 20 cities where there are functioning branches to put on the target list. Uh, so, uh, George, are you keeping up with my time? I can't hear you, George.
I am.
So how many minutes do I have left of the 7?
5.
George, I've been talking a lot longer than 2 minutes.
Yeah, but
So,
you went away and came back.
well, let's open up the discussion. So let's look at the cities that we have on this call. We have the Triangle, which actually includes 3 cities, Raleigh, Chapel Hill, and Durham. And I know that we can get ordinances passed in Chapel Hill and Durham. So that's 2 cities down. So we have Burlington, Vermont, where I know we can get an ordinance passed. And from what I know about Cape Cod, with all those woke and progressive people, we can probably get it done in Cape Cod. We have uh, San Jose, where I'm sure we could probably get it done. I know we have San Francisco where we could get it done. So who else do we have on the call? Because I can't see, because now I can see the screen share, George, but I can't see the people. So who have I missed?
Charlotte, Columbus,
Okay, well,
Atlanta,
Charlotte, Columbus,
DC.
and Atlanta.
Was
Uh,
Washington DC mentioned?
no, but I know we can get it done there. The good news is that last week, Boston passed one. It's kind of weak, but we have quite a few allies in Boston to work with the Boston branch to strengthen it. So I believe we've counted off at least 10 or 12 cities. George, did you keep track of the number?
I didn't keep track of the number, but it won't take long for us to come up with it again. I think you're right with your number. It's like 12. We've got 1. Okay.
So we'll be talking more about that in the second item on the agenda. But let's just focus in on the strategy chart because the ordinance getting passed and so, well, my Zoom on the laptop went away, so I'm totally on my phone now. But I do see the chart. So let's open up the discussion. Can people say their name and stat? And George, if you could keep up with it, and we're doing 3-minute rounds, you can get to speak more than once in these few minutes that we have left because it's 2:25 and we want to finish this item by 2:35. So are there any questions about the process? Because we're moving into hearing reports from everybody on the call about where you think your city is. So are there any questions about what we're trying to accomplish in the next 30 months? Well, hearing no questions, let's move to the second item, and you will be called on to speak for up to 3 minutes about what you think is possible in your city. So let's start with Robin Lloyd in Burlington, Vermont. What do you think is possible for passing an ordinance in Burlington?
Well, at the moment, we have a reparations task force that has been going for since the 2020, and I think they're working towards an ordinance. Now, what exactly would be an ordinance? What is an ordinance? Would you describe what that would as compared to a resolution or something? What is an ordinance?
Well, ordinance and resolution is the same thing. An ordinance tends to have more oomph in it. It says that the city, it's like passing a law. So an ordinance is a law. A resolution is just a we resolve, therefore, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't really have much weight. But we have shown the Evanston, Illinois ordinance, which is heavyweight, and the Asheville Buncombe, which is second heavyweight. So let's move on to DC to hear what Lucy thinks is possible in DC.
Well, I think we have in Washington, D.C., and COBRA members and DC Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression members who would work together with WILF on this to get it passed. And that's it. That's it for me.
Okay. Charlotte area for possibility.
In Charlotte, there's the SAFE Coalition, and we work together to get ordinances passed to limit what the police can do in terms of immigration and community surveillance. And I think that same coalition, Robert Dawkins was the head, Samantha, back then. I think through them and working with them and our Poor People's Campaign partners, we can get a resolution passed in Charlotte City Council.
Thank you, George. Also, Mary White, we know that Chapel Hill is the People's Republic of, and I know we can get it passed there with the Triangle Branch. But what are your thoughts about Durham and Chapel Hill?
Durham is considered a very progressive city, and I have no doubt that there are people here who would be in support of such a resolution. Now, I need to know, what do you expect the resolution to contain? How far does it go? Because I really generally thought that the reparations would come from the government, the federal government. But in terms of just a resolution saying that we're in support of it, I feel certain Durham would do that. They're already in conversation about it for several years through different groups who've discussed reparations. And there's a very positive response from the community here. So I have no doubt it would pass.
Well, I agree with you because you remember Mayor Bill Bell. I asked him about it at least 15 years ago, and he said, bring it. And the woman who is the current mayor is his dear friend, and I'm still in touch with all of them in Durham. So I know we can make it happen in Durham. So if we could go to Joan Goddard in San Jose, what you think is possible?
Right. The work that's happening here is a county-wide work, and but San Jose is the biggest city, obviously, and so they have not had a meeting recently. It's being handled by an organization, and we have the Wealth branch has indicated. I have indicated our interest in being part of it, as Teresa knows. And so that is something that I'm keeping up with the progress, and will be encouraging our group to participate in supporting whatever the group decides to do as far as ordinances and resolutions and so on, whatever the category is. But Philip is maybe should report next, because he's from another part of the San Francisco Bay Area, and there is now a report from the State Reparations Committee.
Well, Joan, this is meant to be a branch activity. So the San Jose branch, not just you, but the San Jose branch would need to connect with whatever is going on there.
Yes.
And likewise for the San Francisco East Bay kind of joint branch to see what can happen, and possibly, I don't know my geography enough, Philip, but does the East Bay cover Oakland? Because I'm sure we could get something passed in Oakland. So Oakland and San Francisco, what do you think can happen in those two cities?
As far as the municipalities go, this is all past tense. They've addressed these issues more than a couple of years ago, and the state has taken up from there, and now working with their task force, and they're moving aggressively to right a lot of wrongs that are happening in the prison system, as far as the overall umbrella on reparations. For instance, they're trying to get to pay for prison workers at the state level as far as minimum wage, which is a mistake. And but they want people they want to change the fact that in California, if you're in prison, you're forced to labor against your will. And they're going to try to reverse that so we don't have forced labor. But from my own personal experiences, working with a company that hired prison labor, it is a tragedy. It is a mistake. You cannot pay some people in prison 1,000 times the going rate of what other prisoners are getting. And I've seen the tragic results of that from my own corporate experience.
Well, someone else just joined us, George. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Miss
I
Bowler.
think yes, if she could check in, or he, and let us know where you're from.
I think I told you that was ready.
We need DJ Bowler. I know you've been in these meetings before, but I can't remember who you are. Can you unmute yourself and say who you are?
Yeah, I'm Deja Bowler. I'm with the San Francisco Will.
Well, that's great. So we have two folks from San Francisco. Well, I will report on the Fannie Lou Hamer branch in Columbus, Georgia. Today, I emailed the mayor the Boston resolution, which passed a couple of weeks ago. I received that resolution from Cole Harrison, who is the executive director of Massachusetts Peace Action, who has become my new best friend. More on that later. But in Columbus, Georgia, slavery, Columbus was founded during slavery in 1828. So the person I'm working with on this comprehensive ordinance is the community historian. And so Brother Johnny Warner and I, George, you remember meeting him when you were here in Columbus. Well, he and I are working on the first draft. But in situations like this, the office of the city manager, if you have one, they put all the legal stuff together. Like when we passed the anti-sweatshop ordinance in Durham, Mary White, that's how progressive Durham is. And the city manager, who became the city manager in San Jose, California, shortly after that in 2000. And so I'm wondering if he's still there, a Black guy who moved to San Jose and left his city manager job about 15 years ago in around 2001 or 2002. I don't know if he's still there, but he moved to San Jose. But at any rate, we're working on the ordinance here in Columbus, and I'll be speaking about it at City Council on July 12th, because the goal is to get it passed by Juneteenth of 2023 for Columbus. The Boston resolution is weak. So I'll be working with Cole Harrison and hopefully members of the Boston branch on what has already been started by someone. As Philip pointed out, there are lots of places where it's already been started. So the question is, how much will the branches in the area connect with a project that's already been started? So it's actually an easy walk. So
George, that
go ahead, George.
if we add Atlanta and Greensboro to the list of branch cities, that would be 11 branch cities that are working on ordinances.
Well, did we lose Shantae during the
Yes,
call?
ma'am, she's gone.
Okay, well, most certainly. I'm from Atlanta, it's my hometown, and I know all those city council people. I'm glad you brought that up. So we have a list of 11. So let's look at a target list of at least 9. Well, Donna hasn't spoken, or did you, Donna? So Cape Cod is a separate city. So did you count Cape Cod in the list of 11?
I did.
Okay, so will you name the list of 11?
San Jose, Southern Piedmont, Cape Cod.
No,
Burlington.
George, no, George. There's no such city as Southern Piedmont. So we're naming the cities.
Not the branch,
So-
sorry.
Cape Cod either.
San Jose, Charlotte, Cape Cod, Burlington.
Charlotte is not a Cape Cod. Sorry, George. I know you're
Cape
really
Cod is a
tired.
city, isn't it?
Cape and Teresa mentioned Cape Cod as if it's a city. It has several cities in it, and I don't know.
Well,
Donna's
let
still
Donna-
on. Donna can speak.
Joan, let Donna, the chair of Advancing Human Rights, speak for herself if she could.
Yeah,
I'm
but
sorry, I thought
she was not
I thought-
interrupting after several times.
Well, mute yourself, Joan, because you're acting a little strange. Donna, I didn't know that Cape Cod was not a city. I'm sorry. Could you explain what cities would be possible for an ordinance in your area?
Oh, sure. We have lots of different towns that make up Cape Cod. Hyannis, Falmouth, Harwich, Brewster, Provincetown, a whole bunch of, but I think it would be the county seats. Barnstable County is the center where we could present something. And then, of course, we're part of Massachusetts. So I'm very interested to know what was passed and Cole, what is Cole's last name?
Well, I have the email from Cole which I will forward to
Oh,
George. And
oh,
then George will send out the Boston thing, because he
oh, wonderful.
sent me a news article from the Boston Globe, Donna,
Oh, great.
which the main person is, I think, a young Black activist named Kevin, who was pushing it forward. And so we
Oh,
haven't,
good.
yeah, we have until December of 2024 to get all of the ordinances passed. My deadline is Juneteenth of 2023. And what you should know, Donna, is that I'm on a reparations tour in August of 2023. And Lucy, it's a Northeast tour. So it will be Boston, Baltimore, Philly, New York, Rhode Island, and Boston will be the final stop. Reach the number of Port Teresa and the southern. And Cole Harrison has agreed to work with the Wolf branch in Boston. He's the executive director of Massachusetts Peace Action. So he's my new best friend. So he's agreed to help host the Boston stop on the tour. And so it's a straight up the Northeast Corridor line. So I don't think we'll be able to get over to Cape Cod. But if you could come into Boston for the Boston stop, that would be great. And I don't know how far Boston is from Burlington. Can you tell us, Robin?
It's about 4.5 hours.
By train?
The problem is there is not good transportation direct. I guess there are buses.
And you
Oh,
might be able to take a train to Springfield and then a train to Boston. You used to be able to.
Okay.
Cape Cod's 100 miles away from Boston.
oh, that's really convenient.
Mhm.
Well, you know, it's great to be able to end early if we can. You know, we have a hard stop at 3 p.m. And the purpose of this meeting today was to do what we have done, which is determine who's in for trying to do the resolutions. And so, George, you did understand what Donna explained. So, Donna, how many of those cities you named are within that county?
Oh, within Barnstable County, we have Falmouth, Sandwich, Brewster, Hyannis, Cotuit, Centerville, Harwich, Chatham, Orleans, Eastham, Wellfleet, Truro, Provincetown. I'm not sure. A lot of towns on Cape Cod.
That's 10. I've counted. I ran out of fingers.
Yeah,
Well,
and I probably missed a few of them too.
Well, let me ask you this, Donna. Is Hyannis in that county?
Yes, Hyannis is.
Okay, well, I lived in Boston, so some of those names sound very familiar. So
Yeah.
I agree with your strategy that the county approach would be more appropriate for Cape Cod.
Right.
Sorry, I didn't understand that Cape Cod wasn't a city, but now
But
I
that's
get
okay.
it. Now
That's
I get
okay.
it. Now it's a county, so it's gonna be, and I know who lives in that area, so it's gonna be easy because
Okay.
those are some real woke progressive people who in many cases are kind of well-to-do. And I think they would not balk at it because the Boston thing is an apology. So that's the first step usually is the apology. But I will forward out the article. Lucy has to leave, but we do have Lucy's report because Lucy to Palestine tomorrow And so when she comes back, we'll have a webinar with a report back sometime in either late July and early August. But you know, kind thoughts for Lucy, because she's going into the lion's den. She's going into Palestine, and you know she's going to confront the Israelis and all that other stuff.
Wow.
So
Oh,
it
my
is.
arms, Lucy.
Oh, well, Lucy is a world traveler, and she goes to all these places, Cuba, everywhere. We're so glad to have her as a leader of the DC branch, which we're calling the DMV branch, which will be DC, Maryland, and Virginia. Because of the gentrification in DC, people have branched out into the two connecting states of Virginia and Maryland. And therefore, it's going to be the DMV branch covering the Metro DC area. And Lucy is the organizer. And it was a great meeting Friday evening. Samantha dropped by, but Darian, Jan Quarterman, and Diane Blay gave good talks. Emily Keel did the rah, rah, rah for the Poor People's Campaign. And so it was really great. Quite a few people signed up. And the count, I have the sign-in sheets, which I will scan and send to Lucy, but the count was actually 33 finally. George. So our goal was 30 people at the meeting on Friday night. So we surpassed our goal. And because the Southern Anti-Racism Network paid for the event, I did ask for donations. And we received donations of $225 in cash. And so it was quite generous. That got us almost halfway to the expenses. And I expect to go to the mailbox and probably see other donations. But that's just a quick report since we had a little bit of time. So I would like to hear any other quick reports that people might have on anything, because we are together here in the UN decade in the midst of the most crazy European conflict since World War II. And people are demanding reparations all over. But the one thing I want to tell people about is the equity and inclusion workshop, which is happening at the Congress. But I'll stop talking to give somebody else a chance to talk. Robin, you're looking around. Do you have anything you want to say?
Well, I'd like more of a report on the Poor People's Campaign itself and what that was like. I understand there was some disappointment that there weren't as many people turning up as hoped for.
Well, Samantha, I'll let you do that since you were one of the top North Carolina organizers.
Okay, I'm gonna go on camera for a minute. I look a wreck. It's been a really rough couple of days, not only working hard, I'm having some, my mother's having a hard time right now. So I've been running around and I haven't got much sleep either.
Okay, focus on the Poor People's Campaign, Samantha.
Okay.
Samantha, you look beautiful. What in the world are you saying? You look absolutely beautiful.
You're so funny.
Look at me, I'm the wreck.
Okay. I don't know what everybody else saw, but I've seen crowds. I've been, I was born in New York City. I did live in Long Island, but I went into the city for every major rally. I know thousands. I know there were 100,000 people at that rally. The estimate, from national was 150,000. So these reports and the national media it's just disgusting. It's all about money. And this is what it comes down to, because everybody there was, I mean, we had the daughter of Martin Luther King stand up and give a speech for the ages, and that wasn't on national news. You know, what do you do with that? You know, so we were deliberately ignored by national news media, is what I feel, and deliberately downplayed as well. But that has nothing to do with the fire in everybody's hearts and the dedication and the undying commitment to this movement. The movement is growing. I've been to previous rallies where there were only a few thousand people. This was huge. And there were people from all over the country, so diverse, such wonderful, impacted people. There were community organizations and advocates, but the bulk of the people were impacted people. And really almost, I'd say 99% of the speakers for 4 hours were impacted speakers. And they were powerful. It was a powerful day, and the media deliberately ignores what's happening because
Well, Samantha,
doesn't
let
make
me
them
say
money.
this. Let me say this because it was one of my worst mobility times ever. When I got there, it was a little after 10 a.m. with my Uber driver, and all the streets were blocked. You could not get in. But I can tell you, when I went back to my hotel and watched it on TV, the ABC affiliate in the DC area showed the humongous crowds. So from the local vantage point of the DC media on TV, I was so proud when I saw it because it was like people and people forever and ever. And I was just so sorry I couldn't get in there, but I was also happy because I wouldn't have been able to handle that kind of crowd, not with the way I was walking around and pushing a little walker, but it was huge, no question about it.
Well, I'm
And
glad
so,
to get such a good report because I think even Democracy Now! Didn't focus on it too much, as I recall, but wonderful to hear that there was a large crowd there.
I
oh
was
yeah,
I was horrified that ABC National did not show it Saturday, Sunday, or Monday on their news, and all week hasn't. National ABC.
mhm. Well,
Disgusting with them.
but the local DC media, they really ran it. And I wish I could find the video because I saw it, because they made a big deal of it. See, when you do a demonstration in DC, they have a special kind of count thing that they do. And so it was definitely given its credit from the local DC folk. And so I was trying to find an article in the Washington Post or something about it, but it was a total news whiteout for most of the national media because I'm a news junkie, and there was nothing about it. You know, all the run up to it with having Reverend Barber on it, but it was a total news whiteout. It was scandalous in that
May,
way. But
may I,
I did see the big crowd, and I said, because I was so worried that it wouldn't be a good turnout, but it was huge from the reports I saw. It was like people forever and ever.
does
But
anyone know if CNN carried it?
on CNN,
I'm asking.
well, usually C-SPAN, they do it from live thing, but I was in a hotel that didn't have C-SPAN.
Okay. I
So
meant C-SPAN. That's really what I meant, C-SPAN. I'm just wondering, because they usually carry things like that, but I don't get it anymore. I used to get it. Does anyone know whether they carried it or not?
well, I didn't see it, but the key thing, Samantha, and my biggest criticism is that so many low-wage women workers worked on the mobilization, and from everything I've heard, none of them got paid. So you can't talk about low-wage workers with all of that money that went into the Poor People's Campaign from the unions and everywhere. And I will contact Reverend Barber because I know the Georgia organizers were not paid properly. And I know that Anna and other people in North Carolina were not paid. So we're talking low wage workers. So now that the big event is over, the people on the ground, state by state, have to be women workers. The only people that really got paid was a bunch of white guys who were organizing the events and bringing us together on Zoom, because I was with them guys and I know they got paid. But all the women that were mobilized across the country did not get paid. And we need to speak up about the misogyny of that. So
And
now that
not
the
only-
whole big event is over, we got to talk about it on the ground. Are you with me, Samantha?
I am with you, and not only that, in our efforts to mobilize, we had very little support. You know, we have very little means of, and no financial support. So it is hard work, and I mean, I don't need financial help, but I definitely need answers when I need them. There is a problem. Reverend Barber sees this as a movement that doesn't need to be so, he doesn't want it to be organized like an organization. We don't, yeah, it's very,
Well,
it's a
Samantha,
difficult place to work.
Samantha, I know him well. He's a preacher. So he caught hell in North Carolina as head of the NAACP on HK because he did not understand what we were trying to tell him about organizing. And he will go on the TV shows and he'll give the big preachy speeches and he will slough out all of those poor workers to speak, but he's not gonna do the organization work that has to happen in all of the 40 states where the campaigns are, because in Georgia, it's really weak. And I told those young women who were being exploited, you want to exploit me? I got my little t-shirts, I got all my other stuff, and I put out a whole bunch of stuff. Do you hear me? I put out a whole bunch of stuff, but I'm not gonna be going door to door and all of that stuff for no pay. And I told them they shouldn't be doing it either. They're young women who need to get paid. And so we have to stand up for women not being exploited in this process, because it is the women who are gonna do the major organizing. Well, we need to, George, you're not helping here, because we need to set our July meeting, because that meeting will be another update, and we'll be sharing a lot more about what the ordinance should look like, but we will also have what has come out of the cities, because there are lots of cities around the country where there are branches already, where they've already done it, or branches that are weak, like in Cleveland and other places. So we will get to our 20 very easily, but people pull out your calendars so that we can pick a date in July. And today is what, Thursday?
Yes, it's Thursday. And a Thursday would be the 21st or the 28th. And think about the Congress.
Well, the Congress will be going until the 26th. So we don't want to, the 24th from the 16th to Sunday, the 24th. So I think setting the meeting on the 28th, because we certainly have plenty to talk about coming out of the Congress, because we have a special meeting tomorrow, friends, with the Deputy Secretary General of the International Secretariat. And one of the things we'll be discussing tomorrow is about passing a resolution at Congress on reparations.
Good
So,
idea.
yeah. And so she will explain the deadlines and stuff. There may be somebody already working on that since it's the UN decade. But that's what I wanted to say to folks, the equity and inclusion workshop is, you got to go, Robin?
No, I have a question. I was glad you told me about that meeting. I think it's on a Wednesday in the middle of the week, but I'm still not able to find online when the other workshops are between the 2 weekends. I understand that those are official things, but when are the other workshops happening? Because I'm in the gathering, although I'm shortening the gathering a bit. But I want to know when I can plan some things in Rochester during that week, and I can't find it online. If you know it, could send me the link to the actual program during the week at the Congress.
Well, are you registered?
Yeah.
Well, they send out stuff almost daily. And to tell the truth, Robin, me being a little up close on it, it's not quite together yet. And
Yeah.
so,
I went to one meeting and it was pretty confused.
yeah, but the schedule of whose workshops are, because I really press them to give us our date and time. So we know that the workshop on equity and inclusion, which is mainly being presented as a Black Liberation Caucus workshop, is going to include sections from the UK and Spain. So Jenny Allen has been emailing me every day about the new people. So it's going to be a panel. George and I will represent the US section, and they have somebody named Carmen or something representing Spain, and they have another person representing the UK. So they'll be talking about the history of slavery. But I would propose that we do the next meeting on July 28th, because we could process the conference, the Congress, as well as how far we've come since this meeting. And meanwhile, I'll work with George on getting that Boston thing out, so it will go out to everybody. Because George, I'll simply forward you the email with the attachment from Cole Harris, and you can send out the Boston thing to everybody, and especially to Julie, Mickey Metz, and Eileen, because those are the folks in the Boston branch that I know that are active. So George, are you with me?
Yes, ma'am. I'll send it out when I send out the recording.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I'll forward it to you in the next few minutes. And so we could both have our lunch and get a nap, right, George? Because I know I need a nap.
Amen.
I totally need a nap. So thank you. So July 28th at 2 p.m. Does that work for everybody? Does that work for you, Joan? Wonderful. So 2 p.m. July 28th, a Thursday. So you can let everybody know when you send out the recording, George. Okay. Well, have a great afternoon.
Bye.
I'm getting some sleep.
Yes.